This program is sponsored by Vision One Golf. Hit it straighter, hit it further. VisionOneGolf.com. Hi, I'm Peter Brusso for 101marketing.blip.tv, and I'm here today with Will Crist. Will, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's give a little history for the listeners. How did you get my name and call me that one day?
I got your name from an ACT salesman.
Oh.
A consultant who said, this is the list of people I'm looking at, and your name was on it.
Okay. And you promptly called me.
I gave you a call.
And as good salespeople ought to do. They gave me a call, and then he sent me this letter and a book. And it was pretty impressive in the sake that he actually did follow-up call. So, and that started us talking about your background and marketing and sales and where we've been with that. So and we're going to get to some good stuff here in a little bit, but let's hear a little bit about your history. Where did Will Crist come from, and who is he?
Well, Will Crist grew up in South Texas. Went to high school in South Texas, and I'm going back to South Texas. I haven't been back for about 20 years. I'm going to go back at the end of October. And Troop 73 is having a reunion with our Scoutmaster.
Oh, Troop 73, huh?
I was the first Eagle Scout in Troop 73.
Is that right?
So we're going to get back together and find out what's gone on in the last 40 years.
Oh, that's cool.
So it'll be fun.
And, well, actually, for the listeners, too, we are in my new kitchen. My house is still under construction. You may actually hear people coming in and out. One of the things we wanted to use as a prop was, of course, the stove behind us. When your marketing and sales isn't working, what do we got to do?
You got to turn up the heat.
Got to turn up the heat, exactly. Also, another couple of things about this house was literally torn apart, and a lot of times in business, you really have to burn everything down and to rebuild it properly, particularly in a marketplace like this. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So what did you do from Texas on? You went to college, obviously, and...
Well, let me tell you the first entrepreneurial thing that I did. One of the big things for me in growing up was in Scouts was getting to go to the National Jamboree in Colorado Springs. Well, a small town, I had to earn my way. It was $180. Can you believe that? $180!
Well, in those days, it's a lot of money.
For a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
So I sat down and began to think that if I could get my dad to introduce me to some of his golfing buddies, I could wash and wax their car, and I could charge them $20. I'd go to their house, wash it, wax it, $20. I only had to have 9 people. It took me 2 months, but I did it.
Wow, that's cool.
And got to go to the National Jamboree because I was willing to find the places, find the referrals, go out and deliver the services and collect the money.
That's great.
That was fun.
I think the hardest thing about sales and to some degree marketing, but more to sales, is the rejection issue. You know, we get rejected all the time, and there's a lot of counsel on how to handle all that rejection. But when you start out as a kid and you get all that rejection, but you keep going, then you're a natural-born salesman.
Well.
Absolutely. So, okay, so you went to college then, graduated in English, correct?
I got English and philosophy and at Texas Christian University in Fort Worth. Went back and taught school for a year and found out that I was an out-of-the-box school teacher. And when they found that out, they said, let us help you work in a different area. So I got to work with migrant students.
Okay.
And because nobody at that point really cared about or had great expectations, I had a ball. We had so much fun because it was an out-of-the-box experience, and we really got to help them solve some of the issues that they had. So that was fun. Went from there, went to graduate school in Cambridge, Massachusetts, spent some time there, finished up and went back to South Texas and did some more work.
Okay.
Lots of fun.
Now, you typically are out helping people now with their sales and management kind of task. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, what I really look for is people who are struggling to accomplish, to find their outcomes, to achieve their outcomes. And in fact, that's the first thing I want to know is what do you want to accomplish in the next 12 months? Where are you now and what's getting in the way? Now, the issues that I work on are the issues that are getting in the way between where they are now and where they want to be. So that is really important to me, that somebody has a clear picture of where they want to get or they know they want to clarify the picture of where they want to get. Because without that, we're doing nothing.
Well, don't you also too find out that a lot of people think they want to go a certain place, and then when you really look at it, and from a competitive analysis or other things, you find out that really wasn't the vision?
I don't know if it's that's not the vision. It might be that that vision is still there, but they're not willing to do what's necessary to accomplish that vision. You can have a competitive marketplace, and you can succeed as long as you have a strategy that's going to help you accomplish the goals that you want.
Yeah, I've worked a lot with entrepreneurial engineers because I am one, and an inventor, and what I've found is their product hasn't really gone through the correct acid test, and they want to produce all these things, but you find out from a market sales standpoint, the market just isn't there.
But when you ask the entrepreneur or the inventor, what do you want? What he may be saying is, I want to create this product. That's all I want to do. Now, I've discovered that I found out recently that Orange County is the ground zero for medical device industry.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. There's more medical device companies here than any place else in the world.
Wow. I always thought San Diego was more like that.
Biotech,
right. Okay,
Biotech
fair enough.
in San Diego. We're medical device.
Right.
So I was at an investment meeting last night where it was a biotech device for detecting early stage breast cancer. And what I know is that there is a difference between the time and the culture of a company when they're in R&D, developing the product, and then when they are in sales and marketing.
Right.
And there's a shift, there's a change, and without that shift being, without successfully getting through that shift, that goes nowhere.
Right.
Because the salespeople aren't going to have the skills to invent the product. They might modify it, but not invent it.
Right.
Like what? Why would anybody assume that just because you invented a product, you know how to sell it? Two different skill sets.
Completely.
And so one of the things that I do is help people make that transition from the creative idea, which very often is in the mind of the CEO, and how you get that to work in the organization to help not only do sales, but also to do what's necessary to fulfill the sales.
Yeah, one of the things I think too is the Anton Simpson, my business partner, engineering business partner of 25, 30 years, we had a little coining phrase, was called Fanafy. Find a need and fill it. Okay, so many people invent stuff that there really isn't any market for, and I think that's a great role for sales and marketing guys. If they're right in the invention process, they will go out and talk to the end user and almost do a systems engineering look of here's the laundry list of things we want it to do. This would solve our problem. Right.
One of the things that I did, which was great fun, is I took 3 or 4 years. And did 3 or 4 years as a technical writer. And remember that Toshiba computer,
right?
740 CDT. I wrote the user's manual for that.
Is that right?
Went out with the book.
Wow.
I mean, with the computer. In the process of that, I got to talk to a lot of engineers. And I developed an idea, a way of thinking about engineering, because one of the things that happens is engineers get very excited about a particular element, product, piece, feature, benefit, and it's almost what I call a look ma no hand syndrome.
Right.
Because what they're really doing is saying, look what we can do.
Right. Right.
Isn't this wonderful?
Isn't it great?
Look, Ma, no hands. I can ride this bike.
Yeah.
And the question is asked is, so what?
Exactly.
So what? I mean, good, you can ride with no hands, but so what? Why would you do that? And asking that question is very difficult sometimes, because this feature, this element, this product is the entrepreneur's, the inventor's baby. Right,
right. And yet it has no direct sales capability out there. There's no need for it.
No need. Exactly.
And that's one of the things that keeps everybody honest, is you got to go out there and find a need and fill it, like we talked about Fanafy before. Interesting. Now, you are also connected to Sandler, right? And let's hear a little bit about Sandler.
Well, I've been working with Sandler training for about 6 years. And what that's provided is a system for making sales, for prospecting, and for managing salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, a lot of successful people, created their own way of managing salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And very often what happened is that the best salesperson
Mm-hmm.
was promoted,
Mm-hmm.
paid less,
Mm-hmm.
and now is the sales manager.
Right.
And he doesn't really have a system. He doesn't really understand how or why. And in fact, he spends the first 6 to 9 months trying to get people to do it the way he did it.
Mm-hmm.
And his system doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Because he created that.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't learn how to develop other people.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't learn how to help them take a system and make it their own.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do is help managers learn how to be sales managers, and the whole point of the exercise for the sales manager is to develop his people or her people.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they do that, sales come.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, there's and those systems, if they were taught to him, might be well outdated. You know, and that's the other thing I'd like you to talk about how you develop systems that have to change with the times, because the times change, the sales mechanisms have to change along with it. In many cases, that's just not the case.
Well, I think when I got involved with Sandler, one of the first things that I got to do was to go to Baltimore with 220, well, it's really 400 or 500, but 225 offices around the globe. And so 3 times a year, we all gather in Baltimore. And that's not a sales meeting. That's a time to exchange data, to learn what's going on in the marketplace, to train each other, to teach each other, and to solidify this network. And what I realized was that even though David Sandler created this wonderful system that had to do with transactional analysis and neurolinguistic programming and all the latest things in 1965 and 70, that because of the power of this network, that they have helped, all the people that have helped shape this and help it morph and modify to meet the needs of the time. And so what we really have is this living system started by David Sandler, but the system is really now created by the network of people. And once I met that and saw that going on, I knew I had to be part of it. And what it does is, because of the communication we have back and forth, in addition to the 3 times a year, but the books that we're writing, like the 5 Minutes with Vito book, the people we bring in to work with us, all of those kind of things shape and modify what we're presenting to the marketplace. So we're really very, very much involved in modifying what we're doing. Now, that doesn't mean we change our system. It means we change some of the words we use, some of the ways we deliver the system, because the system itself is a very people-oriented system. And the whole point is not to make a sale, it's to find the truth. Do you have enough pain that you want to change? Do you have any money to pay for it? And can you make a decision? And those are the 3 things that qualify a prospect as a candidate for sales.
That's an interesting approach. Now, the thing that's nice about that I'm hearing is the fact that you're kind of updating the system, so to speak, with people that are out toe-to-toe, right out on the street, right amongst the troops, so to speak. The Army has this thing called Lessons Learned branch, and I do a lot of work with the military, so I like to hear that. So, but they're actually out talking to people in Afghanistan and people in Iraq and what gear worked and what gear didn't, and going back and writing these reports of how to refine these things, but not from a textbook standpoint, not from somebody pie in the sky in it, but from the troops on the ground. And that's kind of sort of, I'm hearing this process as well. You guys are going out and meeting these people that are right in the midst of the battle and saying what's working, what's not working, let's change this, let's start to see that working, and then you bring that back into the organization and they start to sift that around. Is that a...
That's right, because we don't have trainers whose profession is training. Even though we're called Sandler Training, that's not all that we do. In order to be part of our organization, you got to sell and train. You've got to have experience in selling, because when you stand up there in front of 30, 40, 50 salespeople or sales managers, if you don't know what you're talking about, if you haven't learned it on the street, if you haven't done this yesterday, your credibility goes out the window. We don't deliver training, and we're not a one-day trainer. People come to us and they spend a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years refining this system, and they see their revenues go up 10, 20, 30, 40% in 6 to 9 months, and then it continues to go up. But the way our credibility is established is because we're out there doing it. And when people call me and say, I'm a trainer, I want to come work for you because I really love training, they're automatically not a candidate for us. What I'm looking for in terms of associates is I'm looking for people who are absolutely passionate about developing people, about they have been in sales, they love sales, they eat and breathe it, they love sales management, they enjoy calling people, talking to people, getting to know people, and also they enjoy helping people solve problems so they can get the outcomes that they want. That's what a Sandler trainer is about.
Well, that's what a good salesperson should be all about anyway. You know, if you certainly don't get to know the person, you certainly can't solve their problems too much. The other thing that I like to do is network, of course. When I'm talking to somebody that's either a client or a potential client, but I know they need to know somebody else, I open that network right up to them immediately without even a dollar bill being asked. Because it comes from your heart, you really want to help somebody. And I think that shines through as well. Which brings me to my next topic, is the whole fact that in this market, which is nuts, people are still going to spend money. Even in a recession that's 10% of the workforce not working, there's still 90% are working. People may be watching their money a little closer, which is actually great for my Web 2.0 world, because they're going to start doing research. And they're going to see how many people can put up something bad on the internet about you or your product. And a lot of companies don't know about that whole social media side of that they've got to watch out for. But it's a relationship sell more than ever before now. When our grandparents were around, by the way, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Birthday a couple of days ago, on the 5th of October. My grandparents would do business with a butcher, because they had developed a relationship with that butcher. Even if another butcher comes in town, they're not going to go unless there's some reason for them to leave that relationship. And I see that happening now more than ever before in the sales process. Is if a salesperson wants to develop a relationship, they're going to get the business. If a salesperson wants to go in and make a sale, they're not going to get that business.
Absolutely.
And that is that tide's turning really quickly now. Really quickly now. I've had people call me that want to sell me a car, but they haven't established a relationship with me. They haven't asked me what cars I currently drive. What are my needs? They haven't done any of that stuff. They haven't been trained properly. So if your business isn't doing well, it's a good time to stop and think about, or contact Will too, about what might be done, or you might think differently, or in some cases paradigm shifts completely.
Let's talk about what that means.
No, you bet.
The Sandler system has 7 steps to it. And the first one is really not the first step. It's really what surrounds the whole system, and that's called bonding and rapport. And until you have a relationship of trust with a prospect, you don't have a sales candidate. You might have a vendor relationship with them for 1 or 2 times, but you don't really have an ongoing relationship. So building bonding and rapport is very important. That's the first step. And then the second step is an interesting step, because what it really does is shifts the whole paradigm for what this sales relationship is going to be. And one of the important pieces in it is called what we call the outcome step. And it has to do with what the salesman says when he's in the early stages of the first contact, and it's got to do something, it's often something like, you're typically in a conversation like this, you're trying to figure out whether or not I can help you, right?
Yeah.
Well, anytime that you decide that I'm not the guy, this is not the system, it's not going to work for you, not the right time, you can tell me no. You'll do that, won't you? Good. I trust you will. A lot of people tell me they will, and then they don't, and then we get all sorts of chasing around trying to figure it out. But that's good that you will. At the same time, you know why I'm here, right? Why am I here?
To solve my problems.
Well, a lot of people say that I'm here to sell them something.
Well, that's true too, but in the
or
sales
I'm here to
process,
solve your problems.
Solve my problem.
Can I tell you why I'm really here?
Why?
I'm here to figure out whether or not I can help you solve your problems. Now, I don't know that I'll have to. Can't help everybody, but I might come to the conclusion that I can't. And if I do come to that conclusion, is it okay if I tell you no? That's okay? You sure? We'll still be friends.
Absolutely.
On the other hand, we might find that there's something that we discover that we really want to do, that we really can solve your problems, and you come to that belief that I can, and then we'll have to know exactly what the next steps are, right? So take the last 5 or 10 minutes of our time together and figure out what those next, if we get that far. Now, out of roll, we've just changed the whole dynamic of the sales process. From me trying to get to your billfold, we're now co-discovering whether or not we can solve the problems that you have.
I always like to say that people like to buy, but they don't like to be sold.
Absolutely.
And I go back to my OxyClean commercial, you know, where you see them pour stuff on the rug, and you know, is it really going to come up? And immediately you're up on the defense, saying that's just water. You know, that's not real, and that's not the kind of selling that I particularly like to do. And it sounds like that's not the way you like to sell either.
Yeah. The question is, what are you after when you come in the room? Are you after my wallet, or are you after the truth?
We'll share the one time we both are City Club members, or I'm a City Club member, and you were down at Orange here, but. And we have a lot of financial advisors cruising around, and they would always come up and say, "Hi, I'm a financial advisor. Do you invest? And how much do you have to invest?" And that's like how much they can put in their pocket. Okay. I met one guy who actually became a client of mine who asked me. He says, "What are your dreams?" Because I make dreams come true. That's what I do. But I have to know what your dreams are before you can make a plan to make that dream come true.
What kind of outcome do you want?
Right. And immediately he is now my financial advisor.
Absolutely.
And he wants to know whether I want to live in a log cabin in 20 years, what my lifestyle wants to be, and so and that starts to tell what he needs to go do to make that happen. So he finds the solution, so to speak, where the end report part is, and backs our way into what we got to do. Right.
Where are you now? At some point, he did say, "What do we have right now for resources?"
Oh, of course,
right?
Of course.
And then, what's getting in the way?
Right.
And how do we go about that?
Right. And that's a refreshing, quite frankly, a refreshing point of view.
Yeah.
And that's why he's my financial advisor.
Good.
But for me, when when InfoCard goes out and takes a look at a product, everybody gets enamored with and they didn't give you one of these things yet.
Yeah.
Little business cards. Oh, they want one of these things. Well, this may not be the answer.
Right.
You know, put that in your pocket later. But you know, what I do is a lot more than that, and we become performance coaches for their business, so to speak. And here's another thing I always do. I go see the CEO, and I ask him, why do people pay you money? And he says, because I'm the CEO, I have a PhD, I've done this and that. None of that's true. The reason they pay you money is because you add value in their life. Now I'm going to ask you, why do people buy your product? Oh, it's a good deal. No, it adds value in their life. Now you need to go find out from the product standpoint what those value points are. So anything the CEO says, you don't trust him at all. You've got to go out to the client and say, why'd you buy this product? Why do you prefer this one over that one? What are those things that it solves that the other ones don't solve? And then you take your marketing campaign around those things those things are working for you right away.
What if you could do that in your sales call?
But that'd be interesting.
What if you knew how to find out what particular issues, pains, struggles this particular person has right now? And then you knew how to help him find out what he's done in the past to fix it, helped him to find out whether or not that worked, what he thought that has cost him or the company that he wasn't able to fix it, how he felt about it, and whether or not he was willing to make a change.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I end up getting into that whole thing obliquely, differently.
Right.
You know, I get at people who want a product, and that may not be the product they really need. And as I get to know them, then I suggest that may not be the right one. What you want to do is this over here. So I never get there in that sales process that way. You know, what I do is a little bit different from that. And a lot of them don't know what it is that I do, or they hear they need social media, but they don't really know what that is, you know, and so it's like they have a problem that they don't even know they have a problem.
Well, you know, it's very interesting because what I've discovered is that the majority of CEOs think they know what sales training is. And when I listen to them and they say, I know what sales training is and it doesn't work, I agree with them. Because for them, very often, sales training means somebody comes in, spends one day with my salespeople, gets them all excited,
And then leaves.
Then leaves.
Right.
And the salespeople for 2 weeks after are really up in cloud cuckoo land doing all these wonderful things, and then by the month end, it's back to where it was. And that's not sales training. That's not what I do. I don't know what you call it. Maybe call it sales training, but I don't do that. People come to us. They spend a year, 2 years, 3 years working on this, and they're delighted to write these big checks they write to us because they're seeing a return on their investment.
Oh, sure.
And 10, 20, 30% increases, 6 to 9 months, that helps them make those changes, becomes part of their culture. And they're in a whole different paradigm from where they were.
Yeah, that's interesting. The other world that I deal with a lot is the legal world. You know, I do legal podcasting, and attorneys are never taught how to market or sell, right?
Well, they all didn't they go to the legal selling class in law school?
Actually, they don't have those.
Oh no!
No, I mean, it seemed logical to me, but as I found out, because I'm not an attorney, as I found out, they don't have such a thing. They show them where the courthouse is, and they show them these things, but not how to do their own business. And so that's a big challenge for them as well, because like entrepreneurs, you know, we have to wear so many hats. You know, you got to sell, you got to market, you got to clean the toilet, you got to make the product, you know, and do all of that stuff, and how you divvy that up. And if you're not making any sales, you're certainly not enjoying anything else. So that equation has to start to happen. If your sales starts to fall off, you need to stop spending more time doing this thing over here and adding some more time on the sales front end for that. But they don't always know they have a problem. They come out of school or get into these large organizations that do have some sales, but then they break out on their own and they think that people are going to flock to them. It doesn't happen.
If we build it, they'll come.
Yeah. And that's the telephone, so we'll be right back with that. All right, here we are back after the telephone call. Of course, it was a sales call who asked for Susan Brusso. They don't even know how to say our name right, and you don't think I'm buying any of that stuff, right? So, all right, so we've kind of talked a little bit about the technology and kind of the core ideas that people can start to think about. Tell us some success stories. What are some of the top wowie success stories you've had?
Well, one success story I can tell you about is a company that when they came to me, they were selling $200,000 a month. Had 12 salespeople. Right? Not a whole lot.
I'd take that sale right now. As a one person, you bet I would. But
had 12 salespeople, $200,000 a month. That's all they'd done for 5 years. Over the period of 3 years, I helped them refine their sales process, took a look at what they were doing, where they were gathering leads, how they were qualifying those leads. Helped them look at the quality of management they had, and people began to move around and shift, helped them find a brand new manager. Happened to be one of my proteges, been working with me for 2 or 3 years. He took it on, and now, 3.5 years later, they're doing $1.3 million a month in sales.
Wow.
Still have 12 salespeople, but 12 different salespeople.
Right.
Right? But they're doing that now. And so in the process of that, we have worked with various parts of the company. We've worked with management, helping the first communication with the executive team, helping them to discover that they have 4 people on the team who are absolute executors. They will do anything to make something happen. And the CEO's a visionary. Until they got that sorted out, they were going up and down and back and forth and getting very confused about it. When the CEO began to realize that his vision was the vision for the company and began to learn how to communicate what he expected from his people in terms of behaviors, and then begin to measure and monitor the progress that they were making, things began to change. And working with the technicians who deliver the product, helping them to understand that their relationship with the customers has a lot to do with the quality of the company.
That's paramount.
And these people are very committed to the company, but now they have tools. Because there's really 2 reasons that people don't do something, at least in my experience. One is they don't want to. And when we find that out, when do we want to find that out? Now or 6 months from now?
Yeah, right now, yesterday, actually. Right. Thank you.
And if they don't want to, then we're going to help them get to the place that they want to get to. So if they don't want to, or if they do want to, they don't know how. So if they don't know how to have effective communication, we're going to help them do that. If they don't know how to accomplish their goals, we're going to help them do that. If they don't know how to effectively monitor and measure their goals and measure their progress, help them. If they're not celebrating it, we're going to help them. So that was one company that's doing fabulously now, even in a down economy. Another one had, speaking with a company, they had 30 salespeople, in-home sales, and the CEO was trying to manage all those people. And he said to me, I got to have some help here, or I'm going to have a heart attack. And he was right, because he had 30 people and he didn't have an effective system, so he was continually putting out fires. He said, if I could get some managers to help me, I said, you're going to need 2, because span of control is about 15. Any more than 15 and you're not managing anymore, you're just hurting. So he said, well, then I'm going to need 2. I said, fine. He said, I could go out and hire 2 professional managers, but I got 2 people here who are, they're my nephews. And he said, they didn't go to college, but it would be wonderful if they could learn how to manage. I said, fine. So we got the whole sales force, began to work with them, help the managers, and one of the things that managers learn to do is they learn to have about 30 minutes every week with every one of the people who are direct reports to them. 30 minutes every week. And this is not to talk about sales or strategies or problems. This is to talk about you. This is where they really begin to listen to what that direct report is doing, saying, feeling, thinking, and helping to develop them, because the job of the sales manager is not to sell, it's to develop his people. So when I first said to them, I want you to spend 30 minutes a week with each of your people, it's like, oh my goodness, we can't do it. We got so many fires here, it is too much, we'll never have time to do that. And I said to them, why do you think you got all these fires? What's going on? And as we begin to work through it, they begin to realize that these fires were really attempts of people who'd been neglected to get attention.
Oh gosh, that makes sense. Right. Because the crisis, right?
Well, we all have this little thermometer inside. It says it's a stroke meter. It says I got to get certain number of strokes. Now, engineers don't have to have as many strokes as some other people, right?
I don't know about that.
Well, they do. So we got to have a certain number of strokes every day. If I don't get those strokes by positive things that I do, I'm going to get them some other way.
Right. You're going to cause that attention. If you can't get it positive, you're going to get it negative.
And so what I said to those 2 fellows, as they're in their learning curve, I said, trust me. Just pick out 3 people and start meeting with them. As they begin to do that, then I said, come back and tell me how many fires have been associated with them. And they begin to see that as they begin to give positive regard on a regular basis to their salespeople, they had fewer fires. And it got to the point where they had no fires. They had none of those things, because they were in communication with them on a regular basis, and people could bring that to them. No, I'm going to be speaking to him on Thursday. I'll tell him then. So they had fewer of these very important cell phone calls. I got to talk to you right now.
Right.
And a lot more deep relationships with each of their salespeople, so they could really begin developing.
And there's that telephone again. Okay, back from our telephone call. This is what happens when you actually shoot in situ like this.
So let me tell you what happened.
Okay.
So in the process, not only did these 2 learn how to become managers, it also helped the salespeople to move from a place where they were given 15 points, that they could reduce the price by 15 points, 15%, in order to make the sale. And when I started working with these people, how much do you think they were using of those 15 points?
All of them.
Almost all of them.
Right.
And I remember distinctly the conversation right outside our training room, where one fellow said, well, that's the only way to sell. And our competitors are a lot cheaper than we are. And as they begin to learn that they were the most expensive, and begin to learn strategies for selling, they moved that 15 points down to first to 12, then to 8, then to 6. Now, what did that save the company?
I don't know. Lots of money.
Well, that 15 points went right to the bottom line.
Well, okay, yeah, all right.
So what they did, they didn't necessarily increase. They didn't lose sales. Sales didn't decrease. But even if they didn't increase sales, they all of a sudden got, what's that, 6 from 15? That's
All of
9%.
9%, right?
Yeah,
9%.
9% increase to the bottom line. And they began to be better salespeople, and they had strategies for how they were going to deal with price objections. So helping them to do that helped them to increase. They went from 28 million to 36 million in 2.5 years.
Yeah, that whole price thing is an amazing thing in itself. I always say, do you want to fly the cheap airlines or do you want to fly an inexpensive airlines? Cheap falls apart, right? So selling something that's more expensive is fairly easy when you realize that value is built in, where the value is not built in the competition typically. And so if you're just looking for money, you're going to spend twice the amount of money on the other cheap product versus buying a good quality product right off the bat.
Yeah, helping people to salespeople to help their prospects discover what the total cost of ownership is. What it's going to cost me to use this product, what's it going to cost me if it breaks, what's it going to cost me for all the pieces that are associated with using it. I
lost business a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks, a month ago, something like that. An attorney called and wanted to know about podcasting and a website. No problem. So I sent her, obviously my links and to educate her right off the bat. And then she said, what about this group? So she was sending me competition, so to speak, which was interesting. When I went through with a fine-tooth comb of what the competition was, she would have spent maybe $10,000 with me, max, probably, right, to get everything she wanted. Rock and roll and podcast show, really SEO'd website, get her blogging, and really get her out there. There's minimum package for a 3-minute video hosted on their site was $17,000. And she went with them. And she says, I still don't have a website. I still don't have anything. And that's even the opposite situation, but the way that they had sold it was layered with fine, like an onion. It was layered with extra fees. They nickel and dime the heck out of this person. And she says, well, I think I'm sorry I didn't use you. And I said, you still can.
Yeah.
Podcasting, they don't have to do it with them, get their package, but we can keep going with plan A. And she says, I just might do that. And it's one of those cases where she didn't really listen and really didn't do her homework and didn't build a relationship with both companies to be able to determine what was the best for her. And now she's suffering. But unfortunately, many people are that way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I always have some of the most bizarre stories in my sales. Matter of fact, one of my good friends unfortunately died, and good client, owned a fire alarm company. And he happened to, this is really weird, how customers come to you. There was a group that used to buy my CD-ROM supplies from, and I kind of pride myself on my disc labels. They're really different, and they saw that they're really different. And they sell labels, and so they did a story on me. They did an interview and a story on their website. And I kind of poo-pooed it because a lot of people say, oh yeah, we have all these readers, and yeah, right, okay. I mean, I'm in the web business. I understand how that works. Boy, I couldn't have been more wrong. That article hit, 10 minutes later, my phone rings. I mean, it was phenomenal, right? Off a disc label company. And it was this guy, Joe Shank, who owns this fire alarm company. He says, I saw this article about you. I want to talk to you about these CD-ROMs you do, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he was funny because he was qualifying me on the what's the cost. I said, 6 to 10K kind of thing. Okay, you haven't scared me yet. He's actually qualifying me as a sales guy because he's out selling, right? And I said, let me send you some samples because one size does not fit all. And so I sent him down 6 different samples, one of which is a sample of a swimming pool company that I did. I've never had a swimming pool, so I actually went to work with them for 3 months to be able to figure out how to build a device, a CD-ROM that really does work for them. Anyway, so he took these CD-ROMs home, and he and his wife was his kind of business partner, and they put the first one in was the Sunset Pools and Spas disc. He calls me the next day and says, we're in business. He says, and guess what? I also bought a pool. Now, the interesting part of the success story of Joe Shank was he actually helped me to refine the way I would structure my own product towards him because he had 6 unique marketplaces that he had to go into. So you would normally say that's 6 individual CD-ROMs. And the answer is yes. Is it 6 times the cost? I'd love to say it was 6 times the cost, but that'd be the wrong answer. And so by getting to know him a bit, I said, well, some of the stuff you talk about doesn't change from one CD-ROM to the next, and the close doesn't change either. It's just the 2.5 minutes or so chunk in the middle that really is specific to that niche market, because you don't want to produce one CD-ROM for everything. Sell niches, right? A nursing home group of people have a unique problem that's different, and you have to talk about how you go in and monitor and test and do all that stuff without upsetting the people who are there, versus a hotel or a theater, right? And they're all hot buttons for those particular markets.
Right.
So he actually helped me design these 6 different products, essentially, and get that out, and then he started to enjoy some successes, because he wasn't the least expensive, what they call trunk slammers, and unfortunately he ended up dying later on. But we went so far as to even look at how you deliver those CD-ROMs in little coffins. With the story of how you burned little Betty.
Oh my
goodness. I mean, but fear motivated, right? A lot of these people say, oh, they're going to go get the least expensive trunk slammer to test their system, because by law they have to be tested, right?
What's a trunk slammer?
That's what I said. What the heck is a trunk slammer? Well, this is a guy who gets his license to test things, will come up and say, I'll test your whole system for $2,000, where it's really a $10,000 job. What they do is they go test a couple of things, sign off, and hand it to you. And you know, and they know they didn't do what the law really requires, but you save money and you qualified your system, but yeah, you burned up little Betty. Because it's like that fire back on the East Coast in that nightclub. That should have never happened. And had they done the right stuff, and those are the kinds of stories that I just couldn't believe are success stories, based on things like delivering CD-ROMs in a coffin, a little coffin. And I go, oh my gosh, that's really scary, but very funny. One size doesn't fit all. Right. Types of things. So in this new market, if you could encapsulate, what advice might you give small business? Because I think a lot of my people that listen to the show, all 50,000 subscribers at the moment, are small business, I think. And that's probably under 1 million, all the way down to maybe even 250,000. If you could encapsulate some advice for them, what would you say?
Well, I would say first you've got to figure out what you want to do. And if you're not getting that right, if you're getting everything you want, don't call me. Just waste your time. If you've got some things in terms of sales or management that you want to be doing and you're not doing it, but you really want to, it might be because you don't know how. And we can call and we can find out. I can't help everybody, and so that's why I spend, sometimes an hour or 2 hours trying to figure out whether or not I can help people. And so if they want to talk about it, they can give me a call, and we can see if there's any reason to sit down and talk about finding a way to help them.
Are there resources that you could suggest they purchase?
Well, obviously the first thing to do is buy a copy of 5 Minutes with Vito, which is the latest Sandler book. Bringing Out the Best in People is a good book to take a look at.
I saw those up on Amazon when I kind of did my background search for you. Matter of fact, I should scan this, but just for the sake of argument, there is the book he's talking about, and I'll have a link up on the website too. So those are great resources, I would think, that help to, oh, you know what? Let me even say that. I actually went through the book, and one of the things that impressed me, and I read a lot of books, is the fact that you have things in here about action step. For example, there's a blank page, says action step, so you go through this particular book and you actually have to start to write stuff out,
because
think the thing out.
Our whole philosophy is not we're going to teach you something that you can put on your shelf. In fact, I had a client came in and started asking their salespeople that I was working with what they wanted to achieve, what are their outcomes. And we spent the whole first training period talking about that. They came away confused, thinking he's supposed to give us something, not ask us questions. But our philosophy is that until we know where people want to go, we can't help them get there.
Isn't good selling asking questions anyway?
Well, they were a little confused about that. But then once we know where they want to go and we have a plan, then we want to help them take every step of that plan, monitor and feedback and help them tweak that so that they're getting there. So that's what that's all about in that book is action steps. Now you mentioned lessons learned. At the end of every training session, what we stop, or at the end of every coaching session, when I coach a lot of CEOs, at the end of every session, my question to them is, what have you learned today?
Cool.
What's the lesson that you learned?
Yeah.
Because what we're looking for is gradual, incremental reinforcement training. So that what progress means is not a big quantum leap. Progress means small steps consistently done toward a worthwhile goal. And so that's what the whole Sandler system is based on, which is how do we make where do we want to go, where are we now, and what small steps on a regular basis do we need to take to get there.
Cool, cool. Well, hey, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it. And
Fun.
we'll see you on the web.
Great.
All right.